So, Nicholas Bayerle, here we are. Welcome to the Seven Mountains Influencer Show. How you doing today, man?
Doing great, man. Thanks for having me. And for everyone listening that don't know me, my life transformed for the negative, which you'll probably hear about in a minute. And you'll just have to stay to hear the negative, right? Like people love negative, but it transformed for the negative in one moment, caused me to gain 60 pounds, flunk out of school, etc. And if it can happen for the negative, it could probably happen for the positive as well. That happened to me at 17. And my goal is that for the people that stick to the very end, that we create those moments that change everything forever. But we can only do that if we actually stick together here. So my promise is to give everyone everything that I've got here, which actually was a lot of weight on my shoulders just now, but I'm excited about it so that we can create that everlasting change in those single moments. Because every change that happens in our life happens in a moment. It just depends how long we take to get there to that exact moment where things change.
Absolutely. So glad you could make it, Nicholas. I know that you and I know each other, but I'm going to talk to you as if I don't know you here. One thing that our audience doesn't know maybe is that you've been a serial entrepreneur. You've started many businesses. You actually actively have different businesses going on. You're a husband. You're your father. Your son just turned one. Congratulations.
Appreciate it.
You're also an author and a podcaster yourself. So you got a lot of things going on. You also have a high-level mastermind with businessmen, which we'll talk about more. But you're doing a lot. So how do you do it? How do you maintain such a busy life?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So for the people listening right now, it does seem like a lot. If I were to go through every single thing that I do, it's like the content, the social media posting, the fulfillment, right? I was on Voxers all day today for like a certain amount of hours, running a team. Like you said, all these different facets of business and life. So first off is I'm a husband, father, business owner, not a business owner, father, husband, which is what people would normally do, meaning that I build the business around my life, not my life around my business. So I ran 3 calls yesterday, 2 with the Elite, 1 with our BDB club members, which is like a virtual version of Elite. And inside of that, my son broke into the room like a bunch of times. And I just picked him up and he was grabbing the microphone. And I just told anyone, these are paying people. I said, you can leave if you don't like this, because I've chosen beforehand to build the business around the life that I have, not the opposite. I'm not going to, oh, you can't come in here. Get out of my office. I got an important meeting, blah, blah, blah. I've just decided to put that as a major priority above it. So with that, with those priorities of where I want to bring my family, what impact I want to make on the world, what type of lifestyle that I want to create, it first started with what I didn't want, right? I didn't want to spend all my time working for someone else and being away from my family. I didn't want my wife to have to work and me to have to work separately. And so I just started going down the route of what don't I want? Because process of elimination, it's like, if you don't know what type of car you want, but you know you don't want one with over 50,000 miles, you know you don't want one that can't seat 4, you know you don't want one that doesn't do all these things, and it still will actually limit down the results that you can create. See, when you limit the results, you limit shiny object syndrome. A lot of people, they don't know what they've said yes to, so it's really difficult to say no. It's almost impossible to say no if you don't know what you've said yes to. So the first thing is like figuring out, all right, these are the things that I'm not going to do, and these are the things that I have the ability to start saying yes to. As that starts going on, what happens is you get this thing called, first you learn how to play someone else's music, and then you learn how to write your own. Number one, with every single instrument, you first learn how to play that music, play the notes, you pick the instrument, you pick the genre you like, and you learn how to play other people's music. Most people end there. These are people that are just wanting to drive a car, start a business, live a life, be a husband, do all these things because other people out there are doing it. There's nothing wrong with it starting out. Find someone who's living the life you want, model it. If they got into real estate, try real estate. If they wake up with their daughters and kids in the morning, then try it out. Play their music, and through that learn how to write your own music. And that was like the next phase for me. So all of this is just to say one simple truth, which is that everything that I do is all compounding and adding to one common goal that I have. I don't podcast and run a business and make content and all these different things. It's all right, here's the objective that we have to reach these businessmen, to transform these businessmen, to help them build more prosperous businesses than all these people that only focus on business while they don't sacrifice their health or family. And we're going to take that result and consult every major world leader. What is the way we can get this message out? And generally what we do is we find the most effective things first. I didn't start that way. I tried to do all these things at once. It didn't work. So I started focusing on the main things that would move the needle the most. And as I went forward, there's a quote that says that first you take land and then you fortify it. I took the land and I started Instagram, or I started the podcast in 2016, and I'm about to launch a new podcast that no one knows about yet. I took the land, and then I fortify it. I create the system around it. I put the process in place. I find a way that we can make this work in an easier flow where I don't wake up every day and go, okay, how can I create content and do a podcast and do all these things? I want to see, what can I do to hit all of these things with one bullet? Maybe people know this as kill two birds with one stone. I'm trying to kill like 50 birds with one shotgun burst. That's what I'm trying to do. And so the way that I do that is just simply, dude, just have a mission and vision. I start with the things that I'm really good at, which is video and communication. And we take those things and we break them down to every single platform that allows me to look like I'm doing so much stuff. But all I did was sit in my office for a couple hours and I made a couple months worth of content. And then outside of that, though, I'm an entrepreneur. So I'm always doing more than I need to do. I don't need to work as much as I do work, but I do it because that's what I love. There's actually a quote that I'll bring out here that my friend posted today, and I thought it summed it up really nicely. And if people don't feel this way, they should probably change what they're doing. A master in the art of living draws no sharp distinction between his work and his play, his labor and his leisure, his mind and his body, his education and his recreation. He hardly knows which is which. He simply pursues his vision of excellence through whatever he is doing and leaves others to determine whether he is working or playing. To himself, he always seems to be doing both. That's how I do it.
I love it. And it really inspires me too. Of just when you talked about when your son came into the room, like during one of your high level mastermind meetings, and like you weren't just like, "Honey, get him out of here," you know. You actually were just like, "This
Dude,
is
think
my
of all
first
those
priority."
people. Have you seen those like BBC interviews with people with their kids coming in? There's the one guy that his kid comes in and the lady comes crawling in behind the kid and grabs him by the feet and drags him out. The other one, someone came in and he like cusses him out on live television. It's intense, man. I'm like, this is my son. Check him out. He wants to be here as well. This is how I live my life. And it just opens up the door for other people to go, man, I want to do the same thing. And that's something that's really fresh on my mind, actually, for people that are out there. People think that you create content or put a podcast out there because we want to get something, or we want to talk up all these achievements that we have. I'd made multiple millions of dollars in this, or I sold this thing and flipped that. And I used to think that as well. I never posted on social media until I had a business. I didn't see the point. What's the point of posting on social media? I don't care if people know what I'm doing. What matters is I'm doing it. And that's step number one for everyone, is that it matters more that you do the stuff that you do than posting about it. Posting that you're healthy, posting that you're fit, posting that you're with your wife, smiling with your kids, working, doesn't matter what it is, posting your results. What matters is getting the result. A lot of people out there, they just go out there and they post on social media about stuff that they wish that they would do, that they did one time and they documented it. That's just stupid, because what they actually do in private doesn't line up with what they're posting on social media and what they're showing to the world. Yet here's the difference. I remember in 2015 ish, I had a mentor of mine that just had a new daughter, and his other daughter was really young. And it was interesting because he always put his daughter to sleep, like always, like was there to make sure that he put her to bed. And even when he's traveling at the time, he would FaceTime her, FaceTime the kids every single night. He'd leave, put his kids to bed, and literally come back. And one time he told his kids he would make pancakes with them in the morning, and he's about 2,000 miles away. So he's supposed to fly home, but the flight got canceled. He couldn't get a rental car because his license expired or something. He had to jump in and literally hitchhike his way all the way back home. He finally got home in the morning to have breakfast with his kids, and then obviously fell asleep because he's so tired. And it was interesting because he told me that story, and it got me thinking, hopefully it got other people thinking right now, is that even if he didn't tell me this, even if he didn't post it on social media, he still was a good dad because he did it. And that's how he lives his life. He wasn't posting about it to get attention. He wasn't talking about it to get attention. This is who he was, and he was giving me an insight into his life. that still to this day has impacted how I father, because that inspired me to want to do that same exact thing with Kingston. So I've set up boundaries that other people are like, wow, like what the heck? Why do you do that? I'm like, oh, because of this example that happened back then. So realize that your story, your message, the life you live, when you get it out there through all different social media platforms, one, it first matters that you're living it. And two, it's a gift to the world, because it's an opportunity like that it could shift their life forever by seeing a good example. And that's what's really helped me actually get my stuff out there more is, man, I'm like, well, I do this, whether you guys see it or not. This is what I do. And if I share it, it could possibly change someone's life the same way it changed mine.
So good. One thing that brings to mind when you're sharing about that is that, when we're pursuing excellence and we're pursuing like the thing that God's put on our heart. Like this show, it's all about the Seven Mountains influencers, people that are in every sphere of society, which again, we're talking about the family mountain, the mountain of business, government, education, arts and entertainment, and down the list. So there's different places that we've all been called to influence, and some of us more mountains than just one. But when we're thinking of this and we've got this assignment that God's put on our heart and we feel called to, like how do we do it and pursue with excellence, but I guess have that balance that you talk about with family. Like you still have your boundaries, but at the same time, I think there's a mindset often like we just got to grind it out for these next 2 to 4 years, 2 to 5 years, and then after that, then I'll put in the boundaries for family time, for recreation, personal time, health, these things. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
how do we do that if we're not at that place we have the results yet we're looking for? How can we do that and yet still have balance and boundaries now?
Yeah. The thing is that those people will never be happy even after the 2 or 4 years. And it'll be even more depressing because they've hit the ultimate failure, which is success without fulfillment. Because the problem is that if you're not happy now with building what you're building, you're not going to be happy when you hit it, because then you'll be fearful that it's going to go away. Your problems become bigger and you get more problems when you become more and do more. Your capacity just changes. So if someone's anxious with a small business, homie, they're going to be super anxious with a big business. If they're unhappy and can't set boundaries with a small business or with lack, dude, living a life of lack is a lot easier than living a life of abundance. It's an easier life
Yeah.
to fail. It's easier to fail. It's easier to live with nothing. It's easier to not have to steward anything. And it's easier to go paycheck to paycheck or little bit to little bit. And again, I'm talking to people that have opportunity. There's many people in the world that don't have clean water and all these things that are serious, life changing things. Yeah. When we're talking about, man, I have this dream, like the fact that people have dreams and they can dream is already showing like a privilege, right? They're already not like, I have to walk 20 miles to make sure I get enough water for the entire week for my family. So realize I'm talking to those people. So that's number one. Number two, though, is realizing that there are different seasons. I talk almost every day with a great friend of mine that right now in his 20s is transforming his whole life, but he works about 12 to 13 hours a day in order to do that. They've done over $100 million in sales, but he's literally doing everything in his 20s so that after 30, he literally never has to work again if he doesn't want to. And that type of mentality of understanding the seasons allows him to be present in the current season and then transition into the next season. And oftentimes we just want to like harvest, 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 or plant, plant, plant. And like we don't understand the flow of the different seasons. And for every single person, it's a little bit different. So if right now, if someone's in the season of harvest, like you better freaking harvest. Like not everything's going to fall off and die anyway. So you better harvest. And being on the same page of that as a couple, as a family, and yourself is what allows you to actually go out there and do that. So not saying that there isn't seasons where it's time to harvest, time to go out there. Like there's a different season for different things. And understanding that with your vision allows, like my friend, to go out there and crush it every single day, knowing, all right, I know that I'm doing everything in my 20s so that in my 30s, I'm pretty much good. But he's still not neglecting every single thing. That's like working out 30 minutes instead of working out 2 hours, or training for an Ironman for 4 hours a day. There's a huge distinct difference, but he's not allowing all these things to go by the wayside. I mean, his talk at BDB Live 3, which is one of our live events, was how I became a newly married, had a new daughter, and built a $60 million business and bulletproof the entire thing, like as a new dad or whatever. And I was like, okay, he's a new dad, a good dad, has a family, has a wife, spends time with them, and is only 26 years old and now has done over $100 million in sales. Probably should listen to this. And so it's not neglecting, he's just more prioritizing. And what I found is most people allow things that are outside of health and family and business, other things outside of that to come in and rob them of the time that they work, rob them of the time with their family, rob them of their time for their health. And typically it's not, man, my family, like that's not what it is. And if it is, it just is, it's a lack of boundary, right? If people are, they should just get the book Boundaries, and they should read it and they should take notes on it because it's just a showing of a lack of boundary. If you feel like everyone takes advantage of you and you want to explode, it's a lack of a boundary. It's just bad communication. So that'd be the balance that I would say is number one, if you're not happy and you can't set the boundary when you're broke or you suck or you're not far along in the process, then you're never going to.
Mhm.
And if you can't enjoy the process, you'll never be happy because Tony Robbins has said it, who has one of the most influential people on the planet, especially in this subject, is that happiness is progress. It's not end result. There are no, like literally dreaming about things better than it is. Have you ever had food? You dream about how good this food's going to be, and it actually is better thinking about it than it actually tastes because then it's gone. You're full, and you're like, oh my gosh, like it's already done. I've been thinking about this forever. It's because the thought, the pursuit, the chase, the growth is what's really, really fun. And then knowing the seasons. There's seasons where it's time to freaking work hard. And that's difficult as an entrepreneur. It's difficult for me as well because you go on social media, you go to church, go to your friends, and there's always going to be someone who's in a harvest season. And so while someone else is planting and they fall off that season, they're not loud and rambunctious and in the face of everything. There's always going to be someone else. And when we're always comparing ourselves to the person at the very top all the time, we think we have to be the same as that same person that keeps showing up on our highlight reel inside of our social media. Just not true. It's like find out those seasons, and when it's time to rest, which is difficult for me, you rest. When it's time to harvest, like it's time to harvest. When it's time to plant, it's time to plant. And knowing that for yourself is super important.
Absolutely. So it really is. It's actually being in tune and understanding self-awareness, like where you are, what season you're actually in, and knowing if it's planting season or harvest season. Time to rest. Let the
Yeah.
land lay
But
fallow.
most men are overstimulated and underworked. So if someone thinks that they're working too hard, they're not. Like they're not.
Yeah,
They're overstimulated and underworked. They may be just doing things,
yeah,
but you work to rest. There's no such thing as rest without work.
absolutely. Nicholas, I mean, you're obviously a guy that's like full throttle. You're like all out there going forward. You're pursuing the things that's like in your heart, and you have been for some time. I mean, you're an author. So this is a book, The Modern Day Businessman, Nicholas Bayerle. You guys
Yes,
got to
sir.
get this one. This is everywhere, I think. You can get this on anywhere books are sold, right, Nicholas?
Yeah, you go Barnes and Noble. If you want to go local, you go Amazon, which I think it has the best investment. And then also we have the Facebook group, the Billion Dollar Brotherhood. If people are on Facebook and they're a man, just say they came from the show. They watch 5 videos that just gets them connected. I ship it to them for free. The actual physical copy. No, no shipping, no nothing. No
It's
credit
awesome.
cards.
So you write books. You're a public speaker. You've got tons of different things going on, running this brotherhood, and you've actually you've just done a lot of things. And you're not even 30. You're
No.
yeah, that's crazy. Were you always like this? I mean, can you tell me, like, were you always like from the beginning, since when you're young, were you always like someone that's always like trying to build things and doing different things, or like, I mean, how did you get to where you are now? I mean, were you always just like you had success with your family, everyone was successful and it just passed on? Like, what was it for you?
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. I'm just kidding. Okay. So real quick, just because this just came in at 2:05 and that was about 2 hours ago. So right here, this guy just sent me that he just read the book. So for people that are like, should I get the book, or you get it for free, like I said. So I don't care if you buy it. You just have to join the group. So hopefully it doesn't make your fingers cramp. So right here, between you and me, so I'm not going to say his name. I just finished your book and I realized this isn't my quote. Okay. This is his quote. So don't get mad at me. I read 10X Rule before I read Modern Day Businessman. Your book is better than Grant's. Maybe it's because I'm in ministry. So a lot of what you talked about really resonated with me, but I was able to get more than I bargained for with your writing. I'm so impressed with your book. In fact, I feel the need to apologize for waiting to receive the free copy instead of paying full price. I mean, I get it. You're putting your money where your mouth is in regards to giving, but still, I feel like I ripped you off somehow. I'll be sure to pay it forward. Thank you for your honesty and your witness. I know that I'll be treating this book like Hill's masterpiece, Think and Grow Rich, and that I'll be holding on to it and revisiting it frequently to see what else I can learn.
Absolutely.
Anonymous. So that's about the book. And again, they get it for free in the Facebook group. If they don't want to buy it, if they want to buy it so they don't feel bad like this guy, well, then go to Amazon or whatever. I don't even know. Amazon probably pays me. I don't even look at it. So how was I always this way? So the thing that I do have, because everyone's kind of like unrefined gold. There's like bits and pieces that we see of ourselves that are amazing, and then it's like really rough edges. We're like marble, which is valuable, but like we need to be kind of carved and etched a little bit. That was definitely me. I mean, I was the youngest kid in the world to start racing bicycles. I started racing motocross at 4. I learned how to skateboard when I was like 2 as well, and skateboarded a ton growing up. So I was like the action sports guy, bicycles, motocross, skateboarding, anything that like was a board, wheel, sport, scary, driving. Those were all my things. Yet I wasn't disciplined. I didn't have great commitment. So really, like I didn't do that well in school. I didn't communicate that well. That was a big one for me. No one really understood what I'd say. I'd explain things and people just didn't get it. So I think there was a balance. I had a good example of my dad being a business owner and going through hard times. My uncle was a business owner. Yeah, for me, I was a kid that had some potential. Yet I caught myself at maybe 22 years old, thinking I was going to be a millionaire by 25. I started my business at 20 with my wife, who we just got married, and she was 18. And my mentor at the time, and still is a mentor, Yost Jansen, who's a Navy SEAL and also was a Navy SEAL instructor, works in Hollywood. He looked at me and he was like, I don't think you have what it takes to do this business stuff. Like he was like, if anyone's going to build it, it's going to be Amanda. There's just no way. I just didn't have it. I didn't have the skills. I didn't have people wanting to follow me. I don't know what it was. I was in my own way. And so that's why I truly believe in, I think it's the best thing for me. Realize that I had a falling out with my father. My parents are split up. I wrote a suicide letter when I was 7. I got a 1.8 GPA in school. I almost wrote a college to try to go because I had no clue what to do with my life. I really had no vision for my life after I gave up motocross. I get married and I'm carpet cleaning for years. Like I have nothing going for me. And so when I look at like the different things that happened in my life with not dating anyone for 7 years, being 60 pounds overweight, not being able to provide for my wife, driving us into debt, and literally getting to my almost mid 20s and being like, I don't have anything that'll allow me to make over 20K a year. Like I have no skill set. I don't know how to sell. I don't know how to communicate. I just don't know what to do. I'm literally not even allowed to ride elevators. I'm getting the cops call on me if I pull up to the front of a building because my kind or my profession is not allowed to go through the front doors of the buildings that I clean. And so when I look at all these people, I now look at that as such a blessing because one, it was something that I went through and I overcame. Notice the difference. Overcame it. I'm not just talking about problems that I go through. I'm no longer 60 pounds overweight. I'm no longer broke and can't do the things that I want to do. I no longer can't go through the front door if I want to. I no longer am single, beautiful wife and a kid, and want to keep it that way. And so with all of those things, it's something that I've overcome. And I realized that, man, I'm so glad I went through all those struggles because it allows me to relate to all these other guys out there that truly I felt when I first started BDB and still to this day that they all had more potential than I did. So I'm not here trying to build like the biggest business out of my whole community, the biggest following out of my whole community. Now, don't get me wrong. Like I'm going to beat all their asses. Like I'm going to go out there and try to whoop them all, right? I'm going to speak more. I'm going to do more. I'm going to get out there more. I'm going to try to do my best because hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. Yet I find lots of men out there have tremendous amounts of talent, way more than I do. And my goal is just to help them cultivate that. Because if I, with little talent, could go out there and build the business that I have, generating millions of dollars and continuing to grow, we grew in 2020, planning to grow in 2021, then I truly believe that these guys can as well. Yet oftentimes we're more fearful of living the life that we actually dream than living a life that we already know is complete failure. Like we're scared of failing on the way to our dreams rather than choosing failure already, which is a life that we don't want. And they're not willing to sacrifice in order to do so. You know, if one of my mentors, Yost Jansen, was on here right now, you know, he'd laugh if anyone was living in a house or had an extra bedroom and wasn't renting it out right now, but was trying to go after their dreams. He would laugh that people wouldn't downsize what they're doing. He would crack up that people have a car or a dog or a pet or all these other things that they go out there and do, because he's just like, you don't deserve it. Like, if you want to go after your dream, like, you don't deserve to do any of that stuff until you deserve it. And, you know, I remember when he told me at 22, 23, he goes, you got to live off of half your income. And I was like, I make like $1,400 a month. Like, there is nothing to live off of that's half. And he goes, if you don't like it, then raise your income. But you're not allowed to live off more than half your income. It took me a couple more years after that to try to figure that out. Yet it was a standard. Many people decrease their standards in life to their circumstances rather than raising their circumstances to their standards. And so people talk about it, but they got to be about it.
Love it. So it really comes down to, it wasn't necessarily that you had, you know, everything handed to you in a silver platter, but it was, you had to at one point learn that it takes hard work to make the dream work. You have to put in
Dude,
the
I got
sweat
married at
equity.
20 with no job. We lived in affordable housing for $350 a month. We had bums sleeping behind us. I had termite mounds in my house. I got like a lung sickness from mold growing in our it was a swamp cooler. It wasn't even an AC. I moved down to San Diego to try to build a business and I failed. I was selling coffee at garage sales, a lot of times out of my mom's garage when they would run garage sales. Never was profitable in that. I got kicked out of the townhome that I lived in because I was managing them, got an opportunity, was managing them, got reduced rent, and they ended up remodeling. They didn't need a manager anymore. So I got kicked out. I tried to live in the back of a halfway home, which is where kids would go if they didn't have great family members or the family members were on drugs or whatever. And the state denied me. And so I had to live in a 400 square foot apartment with my wife with no AC and 110-degree weather as we try to build our business again. I was living off of credit cards to be able to pay for food, not pay for other stuff, to pay for food, thinking that one day that those credit cards would max out. I was living off of a $75 a week eating out, or not eating out, eating budget in general, food, sweet potato, banana, while trying to be healthy, right? I was trying to run a health company with a $25 a week eating out budget. Try that today for two people, not one. I carpet cleaned for 2.5 years on the road and I ate Chipotle 3 times out. That was it. Packed every single meal. I had no money to eat out. One of them was on the company, by the way. And so we sat there and sweat our ass off with pictures in our kitchen that was hardly a kitchen. It was like one little stove with a wall. We put pictures on it, angled the computer the right way, and we started running our first virtual events and summits, trying to build the business. My wife worked at a massage department as a receptionist, getting paid $12 an hour to write down people's appointments, getting yelled at. She made $900 a month. I clean carpets full time. She interned for a health coach for nothing. She worked for a health coach for zero money to try to learn online marketing. And that's just how we did things, man. We scrapped it up and we kept going. So that was years, like 4 years straight of that, to moving into a 700 square foot, 2-bedroom place. And we lived there for like 2 years building our business, to even renting a room from a family member. I mean, I did my first $100,000 month living in a 10 by 10 room, sleeping in a full bed with my wife. We didn't even have a queen bed. I was renting a room and I had an office. So I rented a room and then I had an office to go to work, like a 250 square foot office. So I don't know, just that I wish that I could tell people that they're just going to all of a sudden be really good at stuff that they've never done before, just like everything else they do, right? Like they just naturally go out there and ride a bike and start jumping off ramps, and they naturally go out there and throw a baseball like Dr. Fauci and miss the entire umpire, like they go out there and or the catcher, and they go out there and they just like pick up these sports and they're really really good at them, right? Within a couple months, they have the best coach, and in 6 months they're a pro athlete. Come on, dude. It's like, this is a
Yeah.
lifestyle.
Yeah.
And it gets
Exactly.
easier. That's the best part. This is one thing that I'll give of hope, since this might get a lot of people to quit doing business. And hopefully it does. I really hope that they quit. That's my goal of this podcast, is get people to quit. And for the people that are like, I'm not going to quit, I'm like, good, you're welcome. Like, now you've at least made a decision not to quit. Because if I can get you to quit, dude, I guarantee you life and business and things that come at you, though, it's going to get you to quit as well. But if I get you to quit, then at least I got you to quit now and you can move on to something else. But think about this. In a job, and there's nothing wrong with jobs. I need people to have jobs. Businesses aren't built without jobs. Inside of a job, it's very easy today to make a decent amount of money doing very little. Doing very little. Very, very little. Not saying it's not a lot of time, but they don't really do jack squat. It's pretty easy. I mean, dude, I employ people right now that if I had their job when I was carpet cleaning, they make way more money than I do doing such easier type of work. But it's very valuable work, right? Because we don't get paid based on how hard we work. We get paid based on the value that we bring. So with that, it's very difficult for people to transition from being an employee to an entrepreneur, because they go from a place where it's pretty easy to make a decent amount of money, not a lot, just enough to survive paycheck to paycheck. If they really live a crappy life, they can save up for their whole life and do the Dave Ramsey thing and not drink 5,400 cups of coffee, and they'll be able to retire in a $150,000 house in Michigan. Kind of playing around, so I apologize to people that are doing that. Yet they transition from this place of, I'm building it, I'm got a job that gives me a good amount of money doing very little. It's pretty easy. To, I want to build a business. And the hardest money you make in a business is a little bit. By far. Making a little bit of money in a business is the hardest money that you'll make. The first $100,000 is so hard. You have no reputation. You have no systems. You have no help. You have no testimonials. You have no case studies. No one wants to invite you to do anything. I just got on this app, Clubhouse, and I jump on and I get invited to speak all the time. And you know what I said? I talked to people. And I said, that's not fair. There's so many thousands of people. I was in a room the other day. I was speaking in front of 1,700 people. It's like, that's so unfair. There's 1,700 other people that could speak, but they're not getting invited up because nobody knows them. But because of what I've done over the last 5, 6, 7 years, really 10 years, because of what I've done, now I get invited to come up there and speak, and then my following grows faster, and then I get these leads and people love it and they see the testimonials. And now all of a sudden people are buying easier. It's still hard. It's just different. And I'm like, it's unfair, but it's unfair because of the 10 years of work that I put in. So realize that that first 100K is difficult because you have no reputation. No one knows who you are. You haven't been consistent. You don't have case studies. You don't have the systems. You don't have the help. You don't have the people. You don't have the omnipresence. You don't have just time in the marketplace. Yet when you get that first 100K, you now have testimonials. You have the case study. You have the process. You have the refinement. You have the ability to duplicate those clients. You now have a reputation in the marketplace that if you continue to go, it's like rocket. It's like a rocket, right? It's like 90% of the business launch, 90% of the fuel is just to get out the atmosphere. And then once you're in the atmosphere, like, it's 10% fuel to get to the freaking moon. And so for me, it's like, it's difficult to see people go through that because they feel like, man, like, if I'm working this hard for this little money, right? Like, my business made, like, I made 19 grand and then 21 grand and then 67 grand. And all of those were not profitable. I didn't make the money. That's just what the business sold. When you look at that and you go, I'm working this hard for that little, and then all of a sudden you get the, oh, you can make $12,000 a month or $15,000 a month or $20,000 a month at this job. It's like, whoa. Like, I could just literally, like, they'll just give it to me if I just sign up and I just do the things that they say, not knowing that that's the hardest money that you're going to make, is the little bit. Myron Golden has a great quote that says, it's easier to make a lot of money in a little bit of time than it is to make a little bit of money over a long period of time. It's very, very true. So if there is any hope that I'm giving out there, it's that, man, the hardest money is the beginning, because you haven't proven the product.
Yeah.
You don't know if it works, if people love it. Yet when it starts selling, it becomes easier to continue to sell.
One thing I wanted to ask you, Nicholas. So now you run a thing. It's called the Billion Dollar Brotherhood, and I was actually wondering for myself because I actually don't know the story at all. Like where did this come to play? Like for you, was it like because we're all Christians that are going to be listening to this? Like, do you feel like you had like a vision or like a dream from God, or like just kind of came to you, and then like tell me a little bit about like the heart behind it and what you're doing with it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like all of it kind of weighs on each other. I feel like every single moment, every decision, every path we take kind of sets us up for the things that we're doing now. So, and oftentimes, if we don't take those seemingly insignificant paths as well, and we take the easy way out, we miss out on the equipping for the destiny because we just can't see the beginning from the end yet. So I think there's so many things I couldn't even explain here that had to happen to set me up for what I'm doing. But some key things that really happened were definitely, I mean, the fact that I got into network marketing when I was 20, and then out of network marketing, taking the inspiration, the things that I learned there, and thinking about, man, what can I do? But even why I got into network marketing, it's like I went to like 16 different countries serving the poor. And I was like, well, I want to send all these people. Like there's 1,200 people that want to go serve the poor. What if I just make money and send them? And I didn't know that like I was going to fail at it and it was going to suck, but that was my heart. And I was like, oh man, like that's what I want to do. And that's what got me into business. And then I failed the business, and then I lost like all my friends and everything because they thought I was a failure. And really, I thought I was a failure too. To cleaning the carpets, to losing the weight. Right, that was like the initial thing that I did. I was like, that's what I've done. Like I want to use that. So it's interesting to look back now because it's like very logical in that way, but at the same time, like like prayer and worship were the things that really brought everything to us. Like it was a daily thing. And now it's just a piece of, it's like asking a painter to be like, so why did you do the black before the orange? And they're like, I don't even remember what layers of paint I put on this. Like, I just was like, man, that looks good right now. Like, I need to do this. And they were praying and worshiping along the way. And they continued to build something until it ended up being something that was like marvelous, but it just didn't feel like it during the time. So it doesn't really answer your question, but ultimately that's always been our core focus, even still to this day. And inside of that, we now can look back hindsight and look at it logically that, my gosh, if I didn't learn the brick and mortar stuff, I wouldn't have been able to serve like all these people in brick and mortar. I wouldn't be able to look at business from all these different industries and be able to pull things together that most people would never be able to understand because they're only in one industry. I would have never created the brotherhood if I didn't create the health and fitness company that I didn't want to talk to women because I wasn't a woman. And then I went to men's events to be able to learn more. And I was like, man, these Christian men's events suck. Like they don't have any masterminds. They have nothing to invest in. They have no connection afterwards. And so I'm like, I'm going to solve that problem. And I just continued to pull on the string and just continued to grow as a person. And ultimately, like as a businessman, your business will only grow as much as you do. So it's like the number one focus is like my personal growth. And inside of that, the ideas for the business and the leading always comes, but I'm willing to change it anytime. I don't expect to change because I feel like what I'm building is exactly what God intended me to build, but it's not the last thing that I'll build. That's for sure.
But why men? You're kind of focusing here with just men. Like, is there why? I mean, there's obviously 50% population there, you're kind of missing out. Why would you just only focus on the guys?
Yeah. So number one was when I first started, I knew I'd be coaching the men, and I just didn't want to talk to people's wives about how crappy their husband was and have them talk to me about it and then possibly build an emotional connection to me. That was number one. And it's kind of like when I wanted to just send all the people to go serve the poor, I thought that the poor people were stuff that didn't have people or people that didn't have things, not knowing that people in America are poor in many ways. They just have a lot of stuff. And so it was like each time is like, oh, I thought it was because I was going to coach men because I didn't want to talk to the women. Second, I couldn't say that I knew the emotions, the hormones, the feeling of what it's like to go through the world as a woman. And then all of a sudden it turned into the fact that I'm like, women already want to be three dimensional and want to be the things that I teach. And I'm just helping the guys speed up the process of getting them on the same page is what I tell these women. I'm like, I'm just trying to help you out because it's the guys that are struggling with this. So ultimately I just feel called to it. Like it's something that I'm really good at. It's something that I understand. It's something that I've gone through myself. And it's something that's being neglected right now in the world. And yeah, I push out 50% of the population, but I never think about it. I'm just like, that's who we serve.
Yeah.
Like, that's just how it is. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, you do a great job. I can say firsthand, Nicholas. But so thank you for coming on here. I wanted to just make sure that people,
Plus, hold on. Plus, like,
okay.
you look at all these dudes out there, and I'm like, you're just not performing to your potential. Like, you're a sack of potatoes. Wake up. I don't know. It's just something inside of me that's like, what are you going to do? Like, I need to slap them around a little bit. And I feel like women are literally having to take and pull the weight of the men when it's never supposed to be that way, right? A king and a queen have equal amount of authority, yet the king takes all the responsibility. And right now, there's kings that are not taking responsibility and not growing in authority for their queen to be able to grow in authority as well. So they're taking on all the pressure, which is making them feel terrible because women love to feel safe and men prosper when they are in a leadership position. Their testosterone goes up, they feel their purpose again. But women are taking over the leadership position because they don't know what else to do. Because they're like, I'm going to get this done no matter what. But then they're consistently burning out because they don't actually want to be in that position. Not saying they won't do bigger things. Look at Sarah Blakely, who built like a $6 million or $6 billion company from nothing. And she's married to another billionaire. And I think she's more rich than he is. Yet at the end of the day, he's the one who's taking the pressures on the family. And she gets to go out there and just walk in authority without the pressures. And I truly believe that right now, if I felt like helping the women, one was my calling, but two was actually making change the world, I'd be doing it. Yet my little niche and what I'm doing is helping equip these men show up better in their families because it's a proven statistic right now that men not rising up inside their family is what's causing a heck of a lot of problems inside the United States and across the world. And what we're doing is going to change that.
Absolutely. Guys, you got to check out the book. Again, this is the modern day businessman, Nicholas Bayerle, Success Without Sacrifice. And you can join the group. Tell us where they can connect with you now. You've got the Facebook group. Tell us a little bit where they can find you.
Yeah. So the Facebook group for all the guys listening, the Billion Dollar Brotherhood, go to Facebook, hit the search bar, type in Billion Dollar Brotherhood, request to join, fill out the questions. The second thing is it'd be awesome just to connect on Instagram. Go ahead and send me a quick message. We would love to clarify anything that we talked about and hear more stuff about the people that are listening. Love to hear about what you have going on and what mountain you're climbing and what you feel called to do.
Absolutely. And we'll have everything posted on the show notes for everyone that are checking it out on the podcast. So you'll be able to find all the different places to connect with Nicholas. And Nicholas, one thing that we always like to do to finish our show is just have all of our guests to just share a little bit on their heart to inspire the next generation. If there was just something that you'd want to give to them.
So, real quick, Peter, because I have two messages. You say the next generation. Who do you feel like the next generation is? Like, is it the people right now that are like 30? Or are you talking about like my son who's one?
Yeah, it could be those that are now that are actively in the place of being able to build their own thing, whatever that is, whatever mountain they're on. But
Perfect.
also even just speaking to the next generation, like our son's generation.
Yeah, our son's generation would be thinking outside of the box of what is socially acceptable in the norm right now. Like inside of a business, they always say that there's the technician, there's the manager, and then there's the entrepreneur. The entrepreneur works on the business, not in the business. So oftentimes when you work in the business, you get so stuck in the four walls of your business, you don't even know what it looks like. You're like, I don't know. You need a bird's eye view. And for the new generation coming in, I look at everything from a bird's eye view, look at everything from a fresh perspective, and really figure out what is the best step going forward. I would easily tell them, make sure you surround yourself with people that are absolutely crushing it, that can give you that perspective, that you can ask questions and bounce ideas off of. For the people right now, man, the biggest thing again is like, I remember being 18 years old and I wanted to go on a trip to Mozambique, Africa, and London, the UK, South Africa. It's about $8,400. And I didn't have any money. My parents didn't have money. I didn't want to ask for money. So I was praying about this and I was like, oh, maybe I'll do what everyone else does. I'll like send out support letters and do all this stuff. I just felt like, don't do it. And I just sat there like, all right, well, then I guess I'll just stress out and pray about it for like the next however long. So I'm sitting there like stressing and praying and stressing and praying. And then all of a sudden I feel like, don't pray for it. And I'm like, all right, like I thought like I'm supposed to pray to like make things happen. So what the heck's going on? And then all of a sudden I had this like realization that if I was stressed out praying for it, then somehow if it did happen, then I would think that that was like a new formula that I had to create, that I had to be stressed and pray a lot to be able to make that result happen. And it would teach me this like really weird lesson of like, oh, like it happened. So I need to stress out and pray like every time I need something. And so all of a sudden I'm sitting there and I have this quote come to me and it said, because I want to like pray about it and like stress about it basically. And I thought like somehow if I stress about it, like somehow it'll make it happen. And a quote came to me that everyone can walk away from this podcast with, which is, I'd rather do what I know is right and be willing to fail than do what I already know is wrong and succeed. What does that look like in that context? I'd rather do what I know is right, not pray for it, not ask for it, not beg for it, not stress about it. I still stressed. I couldn't help that part. I'd rather do what I know is right and be willing to fail, which is not go on the trips, not get any of the money, totally fail in front of the world. That I just, God didn't come through for me. Rather than do what I already know is wrong and succeed, go on the trips, but try to raise support, ask for help, pray about it, blah, blah, blah. And I've tried to live my life by that quote ever since then, because I ask myself every single day, what do I feel like I'm supposed to do? And I'd rather do that and be willing to fail in front of all of you rather than do what I already know is wrong, which is what I'm going against, what I feel like I should do, and succeed, have the best job, make the most amount of money, have the most accolades, have the most success, whatever it is. And so, leaving here, if you can take that quote and ask yourself every single morning, I'd rather do what I know is right and be willing to fail. Can you accept that? Being willing to fail in front of family, in front of friends, in front of everyone that you care about, rather than doing what you already know is wrong, but succeeding, living a cushy life, simple, but you already know deep down inside it's actual failure. And the last thing for all those people is, like I said earlier, like quit. Like if you don't want to do this life, stop. Like just quit. Doesn't matter. And for the people that are like, I'm not going to quit, I'm like, cool. Like I wanted to push you so that you're like, no, I'm going to do this. For the people that are already all in, you would never think of quitting. But for the people that think of quitting, man, like it's not to get you to quit. It's to get you to get to the next thing quick. Because if I can get you to quit, dude, life's going to knock you down. It's going to get you to quit as well. I want you to fail fast. I want you to quit fast so that you get to the thing that you actually want to do. But realize at the end of the day, it's where you water the grass that it's green. Oftentimes people think, I want to switch to the next thing because it'll be easier. Let me ask you this question. If you made $10 million a year doing what you do right now, would you hate it? And oftentimes people would be like, no, I would never hate that. Like I'd post on social media and like help people and do sales calls if I knew I was going to make 10 million. Like, well, then you don't have a passion or purpose or activity problem. You just have a money problem. That's it. Like just stop trying to change the vehicle to try to make the money if you're in a vehicle that makes money. Go out there and actually do it so that you can produce the results. And everyone's in very different fields. I'm just in the business world. And in business, money's the oxygen. If you don't have oxygen, don't breathe, you die. Simple as that. You feed a business money that doesn't know how to produce money, it will die. It's like cracking the chicken's egg before it hatches. It doesn't build the strength to be able to live. And inside of business and inside of businessmen's lives, if they can't learn how to produce money, they will die in the business. So that's step number one, is go leave here and be like, how can I produce the money in the business? And the first $0 to $1 million, just go sell stuff. That's my inspiration.
Love it, man. Thank you so much, Nicholas. Really appreciate your time and everything. And we'll have you back again, hopefully someday again.
For sure,
Appreciate
man.
it.
Thanks again.